Woe, O world! The age of mortals is coming to an end. Time passes into oblivion and the stars lapse in the sky. The dreadful breed of night is crawling out of darkness to take possession of the world. Fools! Seek refuge in faith of madness, for there's no longer any other place to hide. The reign of chaos has begun.
Yo, welcome guys to my next faction guide, this time with the Warriors of Chaos. So I have been asked lately if I could do a Chaos faction guide, and of course I will. Overall I'm planning to do a faction guide for each faction. So actually we have 6 and this is the 7th faction guide. So we have already done the Dawi, the Vampire Count's Empire, the Tomb Kings, the Dark Elves and the High Elves, and now we take a closer look on the Warriors of Chaos. The Warriors of Chaos are one of my favorite races, if not the most favorite race of the complete game. A fact is that I played the most games overall with the Warriors of Chaos. Or let me say, I made the most multiplayer matches with the Warriors of Chaos. So I think I can tell you some good stuff about them. And you will find probably 1 or 2 good hints and tips for your own gameplay. And also later in the competitive build section, you will see you're probably going to find some good builds in there for your own gameplay, for your own competitive gameplay. So we are going to start as always with the strengths and the weaknesses. Then we are going to continue with the complete army roster, the lords, the infantry and all that stuff. And in the end, as I already said, then I will show you 2 or 3 competitive builds. And yeah, but nothing more to say about this. Let's start over here with the strengths and the weaknesses. Yeah, enjoy this faction guide and thank you for tuning in. The most important, the most significant strength is probably that the Warriors of Chaos are very elite. A lot of high tier units causing a lot of IP damage, are very heavily armored. So we have the same on the same level like Dawi or the High Elves and all that stuff. So Chaos is a very elite faction, very elite infantry units, especially a lot of IP damage, a lot of armor and all that stuff. And this is the most significant point. The next point is definitely the infantry base. So we have a very good infantry base over here on the same level like Dawi, you can say, with a lot of variation in there. So we have a lot of elite and high tier units, but also a lot of mid-range infantry units and also low tier, very cheap infantry units. So if you have to increase your amount of units in your army, you have also options here. For example, the Chaos Marauders. So for each matchup, a really good selection, and as I said, very strong units over here. Even the mid-range infantry units have good amount of AP damage and are very heavily armored, so the infantry overall is really perfect, you can say. Especially because you are really able to bring a good variation out of different units to the battlefield. So this is always a very good characteristic. So it's a very smooth and straight gameplay, and what do I mean with that is that you have a lot of crushing power, march towards your enemy and crush it with a lot of quality, not quantity. And we have also on each unit a very good amount of leadership, so your frontline is not breaking up very easy. And especially also because of this is a quite good faction for beginners, because you don't have to constantly return routing units. This is very micromanagement intense, and we don't have that here on the Warriors of Chaos, so this is a very good gameplay, very smooth gameplay. Also a good point is that we have very strong lords, very competitive ones. We have Kolik, we have Archaon, we have Saratorel, we have the Sigvald, so we have a lot of stuff over here, very good lords. And we have a very good variation, so we have in each matchup a lord that fits to your demands. So if you need a small humanoid lord, you can pick, for example, Sigvald. And if you need a big anti-large monster, you can pick, for example, Kolak Sun Eater. So for each demand, you have a good option available here. So the Warriors of Chaos are not well stacked in every armor of service, but we have some good armors of service. The Warriors of Chaos are well known for example, the Chariots, and we have very good skirmishers, and as I already mentioned, of course, we have a superior infantry. In my opinion, worth to be mentioned is also the Shaggot couple. So if you take Kolek or a Dragon or Shaggot, of course, they are not optimal in every matchup. But if that comes to fight against other monsters, for example, against the Tomb Kings and stuff like that, this is a really strong combination, this tag team over here. And it's really worth to be mentioned because the Dragon Ogre couple is really strong. Even if the focus of the Warriors of Chaos is on quality instead of quantity, it's not really instead. Warriors of Chaos are also able to bring a good quantity of units to the battlefield. So this is also a quite unique characteristic for a high tier faction. For example, the High Elves are not able to do this in the most cases or in the most compositions. And this is a very important point. So if you need a lot of units on the battlefield in order not to get outnumbered, the Warriors of Chaos are really able to do this because they have also cheap options available on the army roster, and overall is the cost efficiency very good, and this is a quite good characteristic. But there's light, there's shadow as always, so let's talk about the cons. So I really didn't find many. So for example, one disadvantage is that the Warriors of Chaos don't have access to missile infantry. This can be a disadvantage, or is a disadvantage you can say, so though missile infantry is available. On the other hand, in my opinion, is the cavalry a disadvantage. Of course, we have the Swords of Chaos available, but we don't have to forget these guys are very expensive. They are a regiment of renown, so you can pick only one. And they are designed for melee combat, so for infantry fights is their best purpose, and not for cav fights. So when it comes to cavalry battles, for example against Bretonnia, but also against the vampire counts, if they bring two groups of Blood Knights to the battlefield, the Warriors of Chaos really struggle against that with their own cavalry. So in summary, you cannot say the Warriors of Chaos have a bad cavalry. That is not what I mean, but we have a quite limited amount of different cavalry units available, and the focus is more on anti-infantry cavalry. So simply other factions are more specialized in cavalry units. One of the most significant disadvantages is that the Warriors of Chaos don't have many flying units, or they have never the aerial threat, because they have just Manticores and the Chaos Dragon, and that is not really much, so the amount of different flying units is quite limited. So in the most cases, other factions with a lot of flying units can outnumber them or have the aerial threat there. But besides from that, I wouldn't really say that there is more. Of course, the access to magic is quite limited, but we have the most important magical laws available, the Law of Death, for example, or the Law of Shadows. That's what counts, and I wouldn't really say that there are more disadvantages. Still worth to be mentioned is that we don't have a really good variation out of different heroes. We have just one melee combat hero available with the Exalted hero. That's not implicitly a disadvantage, but worth to be mentioned. So let's continue with the army roster, and let's start with the Lords. So let's begin with the Chaos Lord, and the best use is probably on a Chaos Dragon. And as all of you know, it's not possible to pick the Chaos Dragon separately as a single unit. You have to deploy the Chaos Dragon in combination with a Lord, and for that reason it is really good to pick the Great Chaos Lord in combination with the Chaos Dragon. This combination is about 2,300 credits, what is quite decent. He's very strong then, have very good stats. He has overall some mediocre abilities, nothing special, but the one ability is quite good, this field mace, that will increase the weapon damage by 25%, and he will get poison attacks, what is quite good. But also on foot is the Chaos Lord quite underrated, I would say. So he has a weapon strength of 490, and this is nearly 500, what is very good for a cheap Lord. and the amount of armor is 100. He has a silver shield, he has a melee attack of 65 and a melee defense of 55, and the amount of AP damage is 170, what is overall okay. So even on foot he's quite good for that price, and you can deploy him with disabled abilities for 1000 credits. Very cheap option. But of course it's preferable to deploy him in combination with a Chaos Dragon, because this is quite a unique combination and it's relatively spoken quite cheap. In my opinion, is the Chaos Lord a quite underrated Lord, because he's really a competitive pick. Because you get really a lot for a little amount of credits. So let's talk about Sigvald, and Sigvald is one of the most competitive lords on the roster over here. He's a melee expert and a very good duelist. He has a weapon strength of 520, what is a lot of stuff. The amount of AP damage with 180 is not the best, but it's okay. He has a melee attack of 65 and a melee defense of 60. The amount of armor is good with 100. So overall superior stats for a fight against other lords and all that stuff. And it's very difficult for your opponent to snipe him out or to kill him quite early in the game. So if you need a humanoid lord on foot, he's really a good pick, because he's also quite cheap. He has mediocre abilities, stand or die, deadly onslaught and all that stuff. So nothing special. If you disable all, you can deploy him for 1100 credits. And for that price, this is really a good performance, and he's really a competitive pick, especially if you need a lord, a small target that is not able to get sniped out very easy from handgunners. This is your pick over here. Worth to be mentioned is that Sigvald is not able to get deployed in combination with a mount. You can deploy him just on foot. He has a charge defense against all, is immune to psychology, has a missile resistance of 15% like the Chaos Lord, and he is a strider. That means he don't get any penalties from terrain. So let's come to the sorcerer, and we have 4 different sorcerer available. The Chaos Sorcerer with Law of Shadow, with Law of Metal, with Law of Death, and with the Law of Fire. So we have the Law of Shadows and the Law of Death. Two of the most competitive and most important laws are available over here, and you can sit the Chaos Sorcerer on a Chaos Dragon, and on a Manticore, a Barded Chaos Steed, and a Chaos Steed. I forgot to mention that the Chaos Lord, the cheapest lord on the roster, is also able to sit on a Manticore, for example, a Barded Chaos Steed or a Chaos Steed. But not much more to say about them. A combination with a Manticore is quite decent, because the Manticore, the extra charge is just 450, what is quite cheap. The combination on a Chaos Dragon is a little bit more expensive than with a Chaos Lord. We have 1350 credits. The Chaos Sorcerer Lord with the Law of Fire is in the most cases, or is the most uncommon one, because you can pick then also Archaon, the Ever Chosen. He has also access, or he's also using the Law of Fire. Each sorcerer has own unique abilities like metal shifting or life leeching, and all have a missile resistance of 15%. But nothing more to talk about them. Let's continue with Papa Kolak. So let's come to Papa Kolak, and he's still the strongest lord in the complete game when it comes to crushing power. We have a weapon strength of 540. This is a lot of stuff. The amount of AP damage is 405, and the bonus versus large is 28. Melee attack 60, melee defense 52, and the amount of armor with 100 is also superior. He has quite good abilities, Lord of the Storm for example, but also we have this ability called Star Crusher that will increase the splash attack power by 32%. This is a lot of stuff, and the AP damage by 40%. So Kolak is designed, I would say, for fight against large entities, but also for infantry. So we have a huge amount of splash damage. That means he's really well designed also to fight in infantry groups. He's a all-round unit with a lot of crushing power, with a lot of AP damage, with a lot of splash damage. He has a missile resistance by 25%, also quite interesting, causing fear and terror. Is very fast with a speed of 78, nearly 80. Kolick is very, very fast, nearly the speed of many other cavalry units. So this is quite good. For example, if we take a look on the speed of the Silver Helms from the High Alps, we have a speed of 78, and we have the same amount of speed on Kolick. So he runs fast like a horse. So Kolick is a very strong lord, but of course he's also a large target. So you have to be really careful. But in with a Dragon Ogre coupled with a Dragon Ogre Shacket is in most cases very strong. As I said, if you expect a lot of handgunners and sniping units and all that stuff, Kolick is probably not the best pick. But if you face up against factions that typically don't have much missile power or artillery power, Kolick really pay off. There are so many superlatives for this lord over here. He's the strongest lord when it comes to crushing powers in the complete game, and he really pay off. He's the pure definition of a monster lord. But yeah, nothing more to say about him. He's superior and worth every penny. So let's come to Archaon, the ever chosen, never chosen, sometimes chosen, whatever you like. Archaon is, in my personal opinion, a really underrated lord. I know many say this is too expensive, and he's really not cheap. But he's a hybrid unit, and a very strong hybrid unit. He has better stats than Malekith when it comes to melee combat. So we have an amount of armor of 120, what is quite a lot. There we have a silver shield, we have a melee attack of 70. This is quite a lot also. He causing magical attacks, melee defense with 60 is also okay. The weapon strength is superior with 530, and the amount of AP damage with 185 is also not bad. As I said, he using the Law of Fire, what is okay. It's not the most competitive lore, magical lore, but it's okay. He has quite some good unique abilities. One of that is the Crown of Domination that will increase the leadership of himself and nearby allies by +4, and his allies are then immune to psychology because he's naturally immune to psychology. And then we have the Slayer of Kings that will increase the weapon damage, AP damage, and splash attack power. And he's able to sit on Dorgar, his legendary steed, and if you, with some spells enabled, you can deploy him for about 2,500 credits, and in my opinion, that is worth the price. Even if the Law of Fire is not the most competitive one, he is a very strong melee expert, and in addition to that, you can cast also spells. For example, the Flaming Sword of Ruin is quite good. Piercing Balls of Burning are also good. The Burning Head is now a wind spell, so you can change the direction, also good. So I think this is really a competitive lord, and in my opinion, I can recommend to bring him to the battlefield. Of course, it would be more attractive to have Archaon with the Law of Death, for example, but as I already said, I think the Law of Fire is quite decent, it's quite a good lore, it's really not bad, even if there are better ones. Also worth to be mentioned that he has a physical resistance of 10%, that is not the highest, but it's okay, and he has a missile resistance of 15%, and as I already mentioned, he is immune to psychology. So let's come to Saratorel, the Everwatcher, or Warp Chicken, whatever you would like to call him. He's a spellcaster, he's also a hybrid unit, he's also a melee expert, because he has a good weapon strength of 440, or at least this is okay. The amount of AP damage is not really good, we have just 140, the melee attack with 60 is good, the melee defense with 40 is okay, he causing magical attacks, but he has a quite low amount of armor with 30. Therefore, he's unbreakable. He will never rout off. He causing fear and terror. And as I already said, he is a spellcaster, so he is using the Law of Metal with Final Transportation, for example. He has a missile resistance of 60%, and this is very interesting because I think this is the highest missile resistance among all units of the complete game. 60% means that more than the half of the complete missile damage will be ignored by him. So this is incredible, a lot of stuff, and really interesting. So if you're facing up against opponents that typically bring a lot of missile units to the battlefield, Saratorel is really a good pick for that, for example against the Empire. And he has also magic resistance of 25%, what is also really good. And as I already mentioned, he is using the Law of Metal. But also he's quite expensive. If you disable or enable some spells, you probably pay about 2,300, 2,400 credits, it depends. But he's a large target, he's a monster, he's causing a good amount of damage. So in some matchups he really pay off, especially because of the missile resistance, and in others not, it depends. Also worth to be mentioned is that Saratrol is quite fast. We have a speed of 60 here, and this is quite a lot. So as I already mentioned in the beginning, we have a very good amount of competitive lords. You can say all lords are competitive in some way or the other, because it depends on the matchup, of course. But we have the Chaos Lord, we have Prince Siegwald, we have the Sorcerers, we have Kolek, we have Archaon, and we have Saratorel. So you can really say we have different lords for different matchups, and each one of them is in some way a competitive pick. So this is what I mean, we have very good lords on the Chaos roster. So let's continue with the heroes, and the amount of different heroes or the variation of different heroes is not really big on the Chaos roster. So we have, for example, over here just one melee expert available, the Exalted hero, but therefore I would say this is a very strong hero, a quite underrated hero. He has a very good amount of armor with 100, he has a silver shield, their melee attack is nearly 70, 65 in fact, the melee defense is 40, the weapon strength is 420, what is quite a lot for a hero. The amount of AP damage is okay with 145. He has some mediocre abilities, and you can sit him on a Chaos Steed, a Barded Chaos Steed, or a Manticore, and he's quite cheap. So if you disable all abilities, you can deploy him for 700 credits, and if you sit him on a Chaos Steed, for example, for 800 credits, that is very cheap for that performance. He has one quite good ability called Mark of Cone that will increase the charge bonus, the melee attack, the weapon damage, and he is immune to psychology, and that is constantly. So this is in some cases really worth to bring, and he has a missile resistance of 50% always. So just for reference, we have these four Chaos Sorcerers with the same laws that are available with the Lords, the Law of Shadows, the Law of Metal, the Law of Death, and the Law of Fire. You can set these guys on a Manticore, on a Barded Chaos Steed, and a Chaos Steed, but not on a Chaos Dragon. So if you need a Sorcerer because you took a melee expert lord to the battlefield, you have the choice over here. So let's continue with the infantry, and let's start with the Chaos Marauders. And the Chaos Marauders are, in my opinion, one of the best low tier infantry in the game. They are shielded, the amount of armor is nearly 0. Okay, this is not really good, but we have a good melee attack of 34. The melee defense with 28 is not bad. We have a weapon strength of 28 and a little AP damage of 7. So this is a low tier unit, they are shielded, they can protect themselves from arrows. The price is also okay or quite decent with 375, and they are a good option to increase the amount of units in your army. On paper you would probably say that they are quite expensive for a low tier unit, but the cost efficiency is, in my opinion, very good because the performance is really decent, and as I said, they are a good option to increase the amount of units in your army, especially against low tier factions. There's also a great weapon version available, and these guys have a amount of AP damage of 20. That's not the highest, but still very good for a low tier unit. The price for one group is 500 credits, what is, in my opinion, quite cost efficient. And also here, if you want to increase the amount of units in your army, the Marauders with great weapons are really good for that, especially if you need a low tier unit which causes AP damage. So let's come to the aspiring champions, and these guys are really cost efficient. We have a price of 550 credits. Of course you get only 12 entities, but these guys are able to get deployed in the Vanguard position, but this is useless, I would say. But they are armored and shielded, and they are very well armored. So we have an amount of armor of 120, what is quite a lot. They have a silver shield, also quite interesting. The melee attack is good with 46, really good. They're causing magical attacks. The melee defense is superior with 62, and they have a very good weapon strength with 44. Also the AP damage is, they are not really a AP unit, but the AP damage with 12 is also okay for a unit that is not declared as a armor piercing damage unit. And but the most important point over here, I would say, is the encourage ability. So they will encourage your other units in your front line, other infantry units. They will get other units nearby get a leadership buff, and this is quite an interesting fact. The aspiring champions were restricted in the past, so in the first game you can only pick 3 of them. Meanwhile, you can pick as many as you want. I'm not sure why they removed the restriction, but yeah, as I said, they are really good, especially if you have a low tier frontline of marauders. You can bring the aspiring champions, and also for other units is good, but especially with a low tier frontline. With marauders, these encourage ability is really good, and the performance for itself is really good with these aspiring champions. So this is the very high cost efficiency. I would probably say they are too cheap. So 550 credits is not really much for this performance output. So let's talk about the Forsaken, and these guys are one of the best damage dealer units in a complete game. The most significant point over here is the weapon strength with nearly 60, 58 in fact. This is quite a lot. The melee defense, of course, is typically quite low for a damage dealer unit. We have just 20. Also, the melee attack is not the highest, so we have just 32, but as I said, the weapon strength therefore is gigantic. The amount of armor is also quite good, so we have for a damage dealer unit, these guys are very heavily armored. 75, it's not the highest, but as I said, for a damage dealer unit, this is quite good. Especially because the melee defense is quite low, these guys are so heavily armored that it's not so easy to kill them very fast. Then we have an amount of speed of 46, what is also quite good, especially for flankings. They are immune to psychology, they're never out of, and they have a price of 750 for one group, and this is really cost efficient, really good. This is in my opinion quite cheap for that performance output, or for that damage output in fact. So nothing more to say about these guys. A superior damage dealer unit, and really good for flankings and all that stuff. And especially to slice and dice enemy low tier infantry units or units that are not so heavily armored. So this is a superior mid-range damage dealer unit, and nothing more to say about them. Let's continue. So there's also a Regiment of Renown unit available, the Demon Spew, and these guys have a better melee attack and better melee defense, but not so significant. But these guys causing poison attacks, quite interesting. And also they have this ability Swarm of Flies that will reduce the melee attack by all nearby enemies by -5, and this is constantly, so quite good ability. And the extra charge for the Demon Spew is 250 credits, so in some cases it's really worth to bring these guys to the battlefield. But not in all, cause the extra charge or the overall price is then 1000, and as I said, the damage output overall is not significant higher. But as I said, in some cases it's really worth to bring them, especially cause of the poison attacks and this Swarm of Flies ability. So let's talk about the Chaos Warriors, and I'm not a big fan of these guys, and I will explain you why. This here is the Axe and Shield version, and the stats overall are quite good. So we have an amount of armor of 100, what is very good. We have a silver shield, we have a good melee attack with 36, a good melee defense with 44, and also the weapon strength with 36 is quite good. They are not a AP unit, but as I said, therefore they are shielded. They have a silver shield, what is quite good. The price is 750 credits, so they are also cost efficient. My problem here is that you have better tools. So we have in this price area quite good units. Other units we have, for example, you can deploy for the same price a group of Forsaken. You get for 100 credits more, a group of Chaos Warriors with great weapons. These guys causing AP damage. And you get a group of Chaos Warriors with halberds for 100 credits more. These guys are anti-large. So you have in this mid-range price area better tools. So I don't see any matchup in which these guys improve your army composition. So also for a frontline unit, these guys are too expensive. You can take normal Chaos Marauders. These guys are also not AAP unit, and they are also shielded. So I wouldn't say it's worth to bring them. I don't see any matchup in which these guys improve the performance of your army, even if I say they are cost efficient and not bad. But as I said, there are better tools available. So let's talk about, or let's come to the Chaos Warriors with great weapons, and these guys have, you can deploy one group for 850 credits, and they are very cost efficient. As I always say, and maybe some of my live streams you heard it before, I say this is one of the most cost efficient units, infantry units, you can say, of the complete game, because the performance output for that price is really good. We have a good amount of AP damage with 28. The weapon strength with 38 overall is good. We have a melee defense of 32, also not bad for a great weapon unit. The melee attack with 36 is good. The amount of armor is 100, so very decent, very good stats for that price. As I said, for 850 credits, you get a lot of stuff for your money, because these guys are very good, especially when it comes to AP damage, as I already said, and also they are very heavily armored, so they're also not so easy to kill. So as I said, you get a lot of stuff for your money, and in my opinion is this unit over here one of the most cost efficient units overall, I would say, in the complete game. So there's also a halberd version available. So these guys are anti-large. They have the same price like the great weapon version. So we have a price of 850 over here. As I said, they are anti-large. They have a charged defense against large foes. They causing armor piercing damage. That amount is 24. Also not bad, or quite good. The bonus versus large is 19. Also quite good. The melee defense is 38. The melee attack is 30. Also very good, and the amount of armor is the same like on the great weapon version with 100. So overall, also very good stats over here. And for 850 credits, if you're going to face up against a lot of large entities, I can recommend to bring these guys. You do nothing wrong, and yeah, nothing more to say about that over here. So let's come to the Mirror Guard, the Regiment of Renown of the Chaos Warriors. And the extra charge is quite low, so we have just 200, but yeah, we have much better stats over here on the Mirror Guard, so we have much more melee defense, plus 14. This is a lot of stuff. The melee attack is with plus 7, very good. They also have a higher speed, the leadership is higher. So overall, much better stats for 200 credits, and these guys are immune to psychology. So in this case, I would really say, even if I said that the Chaos Warriors, the normal Chaos Warriors, they are better options, but the Mirror Guard has a quite good performance output, because the stats are really superior. So in infantry fights against mid-range infantry, other mid-range infantry, or not so heavily armored infantry, the Mirror Guard perform really good. They are not routing off because of nearby monsters, because they are immune to psychology. Of course, they are also not AAP unit, but as I said, against other non-heavily armored units, these guys really perform good, and I can really recommend to bring them for 200 credits extra charge if you're going to face up against a lot of mid-range infantry units, for example. So I really like the performance. As I said, against non-armored or not so heavily armored units is really good. And I mean, give me a break. Look at them. They are looking so beautiful. Very good. So if you look on the other chaos units, they are quite ugly, you can say, but these guys are really beautiful. It's very well designed. So this is a very cool unit. I love this design over here. So let's talk about the Chosen, and we have also here different units available. So let's start with the Axe and Shield version, and these guys have overall superior stats. So if we compare the stats to normal Chaos Warriors, we have much more hit points, much more armor, much more melee attack, melee defense. Overall, nothing more to say about this. We have a superior amount of armor with 120, silver shield, melee defense of 60, nearly 50 melee attack, weapon strength. Everything is superior except for the AP damage. And here is the little problem. You spend 1250 credits on really superior stats, but one point is really missing, the AP damage. We have just an amount of 12, And this is a lot of stuff to spend so much money on this high tier unit, and you not even get AP damage. So for 1250 credits, as I said, you can spend 1400, then you get chosen with halberds, and these guys cause a lot of AP damage. So if you spend so much money on a high tier unit and you don't get AP damage, in the most cases, it's not worth to bring them. You can leave them out, in my opinion, even if the stats are overall quite superior. So let's come to the more interesting stuff, the chosen with halberds, and these guys are anti-large, and these guys causing a very good amount of AP damage, a tremendous amount of AP damage with 31. The bonus versus large is in addition 26. We have a very good melee defense with 54. Good melee attack, the amount of armor is also 120, and of course they have a charge defense against large foes. Of course they are quite expensive, but the performance output is also gigantic. I declared myself always as a fan of chosen, even if the price is high, because I noticed very early in game 1 their potential, because I noticed that chosen ignore leadership drops when they get sandwiched. So many players say, okay, they are so expensive, and if you bring chosen to the battlefield, you don't have such a limited amount of units, and that is true. But chosen, if they get sandwiched, for example, from cavalry units or something like that, they will simply ignore the leadership drop of that. So they were also able to fight on two fronts, and they slice and dice all cavalry units. And this halberd version over here even has a charge defense against large foes. So even if you have a quite limited amount of units on the battlefield and your opponent has a lot of cavalry units, these guys will ignore all rear charges and all that stuff, because they have a charge defense. They have a huge potential, I always said that, but many players laughed about me in the first game. But meanwhile, more and more players will recognize their potential also in a competitive sense. And of course, I'm not saying in every matchup bring chosen to the battlefield. That is not true, but in some cases, one or two of these chosen, for example, with halberds, if you expect a lot of cavalry units from your opponent, for example, against Bretonia, in some cases, if you want to defend your backline, they really pay off. And as I said, in some cases, it's really worth to bring them to the battlefield. So let's talk about the strongest non-regiment of renown infantry unit of the game, you can say. I think the PK guard from the Dawi, the regiment of renown unit of the Hammerers, is a little bit stronger. But besides from that, we have the chosen with great weapons. This is the strongest infantry unit overall still. And yeah, superior stats all over. Of course, these guys don't have anti-large bonus, therefore the amount of AP damage is higher. We have 38. Incredible high over here. So of course the price is also incredibly high. We have a price of 1450, and of course chosen have a lot of weaknesses. They are weak to magic, as all units that don't have a magical resistance, and of course they melt away from a Fate of Buna, and they are not immune to psychology, for example. There are some weaknesses, of course, if you spend so much money on this unit, but even though also here I'm a fan of chosen, and in many matchups they really pay off. So I had a build in the first game against the Greenskins. This was a special chosen build, you can say, and you're probably going to find it in one of my live streams from that time. Because I noticed very early that the Greenskins don't have any chance against a Chaos build with many Chosens. So I created a build with 4 or 5 groups of Chosens, and my win rate was 99%. I think I made 100 or 200 games and I lost only 1 or 2. Because the only chance to win against this build was with magic or with rear charges from flying units. So the Greenskins struggle so much against Chosens in the past. I'm not sure if this meanwhile the same, and they have really potential. So even against Ogbo by Biggins or all that stuff, they had no chance. Even with 100 rear charges, they get sliced and diced from these Chosens. Because the Greenskins simply hadn't any tools to handle that. Even the Black Orcs, the performance against the chosen were horrific. So this was in the past. I'm not sure how is it nowadays, but yeah. So I'm a big fan of chosen. As I said, they are weak to magic. They are weak from other stuff. Also, of course, they're quite expensive. You limit the amount of units in your army so much, but overall I think still it's worth to bring them in some matchups to the battlefield. I love them. So that was everything from the infantry, and you see there's not really a bad unit available. Everything is good and everything is cost efficient. There are just 2 units that you can say there are better options available, but there is not really a bad unit. The infantry corps is superior. So let's start with the chariots, and we have some of the best chariots of the complete game over here available. And let's start with the Chaos Chariot for 750 credits. Also, this chariot is very cost efficient. The performance is okay, even if it has not the mass like a Gorby's chariot. It's still quite good against low tier infantry. So as I said, in my opinion, this is a good chariot, even if the Gorby's chariot is in most cases preferable. Of course, the Gorby's chariot is much more expensive, but the performance boost or output is also much higher. Therefore, the Gorby's chariot is in most cases or is more popular. The only advantage of this Chaos Chariot over here is that he has much more speed. So we have a speed of 78, and this is quite a lot higher than the speed of the Gorby's chariot. So let's talk about the best chariot in the complete game, the Gorby's chariot. The price is quite high with 1,200 credits, but it is worth every cent. We have a huge amount of armor with 120. The weapon strength with 50 is very high. We have a huge amount of AP damage with 34. In addition to that, a bonus versus infantry of 28. The charge bonus is 80. But the most important point over here is the mass. Because this is a chariot with the highest mass overall, this chariot is really able to overrun enemy infantry groups really easy, like a knife, like a hot knife through butter. So you can really say the rolling stone over here. He gets not stuck in infantry groups. You can pull him out very easy. And as I said, you can overrun the most infantry groups very easy and break through, not get stuck in them. I can pull him out very easy, and for that purpose it's a very smooth gameplay to overrun infantry groups, especially against the Dawi, for example, or infantry or factions that typically don't have any support from the cavalry. This is very good for that, and the performance output is really high. So let's come to the cavalry, and let's start with the Chaos Knights. And these Chaos Knights are also very heavily armored, and the stats are overall superior, but we have a problem over here also. These guys have nearly no AP damage, and they are declared as a anti-infantry unit, a cavalry unit, even if they have no anti-infantry bonus. But they are a melee combat cavalry unit. That means they are designed not for constantly rear charges. Of course, the charge bonus is not bad with 44, but they are designed to fight or to stay in melee combat. But therefore, as I said, they are very expensive with 1,400 credits, and you don't have a significant amount of AP damage, and that is for that price really bad. And in I personally leave them out in my gameplay. I wouldn't bring them to the battlefield. It's too much for a unit that has such a low amount of AP damage, especially if it is declared as a melee combat unit and not as a shock cavalry. So let's talk about the Chaos Knight with lances, and some might think this is the anti-large version, but it is not. It is also an anti-infantry version, but here we have the shock cavalry. So these guys have a huge amount of charge bonus with 80, a higher weapon strength, but still the AP damage is quite low with 15 or not significant. And of course also here these guys are very expensive with 1,500 credits, but they are always preferable before the Chaos Knights, because these guys, as I said, have a charge bonus and the profit is in rear charges and stuff like that. Even though this is even also not a anti-large version, so against other cavalry units, high tier cavalry like Blood Knights and Demigryph Knights and all that stuff, they really struggle against them. And this is what I meant in the beginning. The cavalry is not bad, but also for that price, they're quite pricey, and the performance output, especially when it comes to fights against other cavalry, is not the best. They are more designed to fight against infantry, but therefore also here a lack in AP damage. Funny that nearly all Chaos units causing a good amount of AP damage, and Chaos is well known for that, except for the cavalry. It's a quite interesting fact. So let's talk about the Swords of Chaos, and these guys are the Regiment of Renown version of the Chaos Knights. The stats are overall nearly the same, so we have a higher weapon strength plus 12 and a higher melee defense, but the rest is quite the same. This is not the Lance version, this is the Sword and Shield version, so we have also a quite, relatively spoken, quite limited amount of charge bonus with 44. This is a melee combat cavalry unit. But we have over here a very significant amount of AP damage with 33. This is quite a lot of stuff, and this is good for a melee combat cavalry unit. And we have a bonus versus infantry also in addition to that with 15. So this is quite a lot and very good, and they are very well designed to fight in infantry groups, heavily armored infantry groups. And we have a very good ability over here, the Guardian ability, that will provide support for your lords and heroes with a physical resistance of 18%. So all nearby lords and heroes get a physical resistance by 80%. So quite interesting stuff. And also we have another ability called Apocalyptic Charge that will increase the charge speed by 25% and the normal speed by 25%. Also map-wide. And this effect allies in range. The duration is 31 seconds, so also a quite good ability over here. And yeah, these guys, the price for one unit is 1,800 credits. They're causing also feel like the other Chaos Knights. As I said, the price is quite high. They are designed more to fight in groups of infantry, very heavily armored groups. That is their best purpose. So in some cases it's worth to bring them to the battlefield, but also here against other anti-large cavalry they struggle. Because we don't have to forget we have just 18 models over here, and this is not really much. So I wouldn't say they get sliced and diced from other anti-large cavalry, but they don't have any bonus against that. The charge bonus is not high. They are designed for melee combat. They will do some damage after a time also against Blood Knights, but they will lose. And this is the problem. You spend so much money, and if you're facing up against factions that have anti-large, bring anti-large cav to the battlefield, good anti-large cav, this is probably not the best pick, but in some other cases you might bring them to the battlefield, especially because of the Guardian ability, and they can really fight with your lord in the front line, and this is the best purpose to use them. So don't get me wrong, guys, they perform really superior when it comes to fights against low tier or mid-range, and also high tier infantry units, heavily armored infantry units, and also low or mid-range or also high tier and anti-infantry cavalry. They perform really superior, but against high tier anti-large cav they really struggle, and this is in some matchups a problem. Because they're really high priced with 1,800 credits, so it's not in all matchups worth to bring them. So let's talk about the missile cavalry, and we have a very good missile cavalry on the Warriors of Chaos roster. Let's begin with the Marauder Horsemen. These guys are really fast with a speed of 90. Their missile damage with 28 is okay. Their AP damage is quite low, therefore. So if you need AP damage, this is not your unit, but for any other purposes against low tier faction, low tier infantry units, for example, these guys can really do a good amount of harass damage. They are able to get deployed in the vanguard position, and they are able to fire whilst moving. Nothing special over here, so overall a quite decent missile cavalry unit, and quite cheap, so they are quite cost efficient with 500 credits. A little disadvantage is of course the missile range, so we have just 80. This is not really much, in fact it is quite low, so we have to be really close to the target you would like to shoot on. For example, the Illyrian Weaver archers have a much higher amount of missile range, so 140, and so 80 is quite low. This is a disadvantage, and of course they are also not designed to fight in melee combat. Some might say that the stats are quite decent, but don't expect any wonders. These guys are not able to hold the line for a long time against some infantry units, so this is just for an emergency case, but not really the point over here. So as I already said, we have a very good selection out of different harassment unit. Let's talk about the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, and the difference is here that these guys causing armor piercing missile damage, and we have a very good amount with 21, and the extra charge is just 100 regarding the normal Marauder Horsemen, so overall a price of 600 credits. And for armor piercing missiles, this is really a good price, also really cost efficient over here. The only disadvantage again is the missile range. We have here now also a lower missile range than the missile range of the Marauder Horsemen. We have 70, so this is minus 10 regarding the normal Marauder Horsemen, and also is quite dangerous always for your harassment units, because you have to be really close to the target you would like to shoot on. But overall, this is also a quite decent price, and they are really cost efficient. So let's talk about the Marauder Housemaster, and they have superior stats overall. The only thing that these guys don't have is AP missile damage, and this is a problem. The AP missile damage is just 8, but overall we have, as I said, really superior stats on each point, better than, for example, the normal Marauder Horsemen. They have also a higher missile range of 90, and also the melee stats are improved, but even though the stats are quite low, also here I wouldn't recommend to bring them or to let them fight in melee combat. It's just for emergency cases. They're still not designed for that. As I said, the missile damage is also, the overall missile damage is also much higher. So if you don't need AP missile damage, these guys can pay off, but if you need AP missile damage, these guys causing nearly no, so not a good significant amount of that. The price is 750 credits, so in some cases it's worth to bring them, but I would say even if the stats are improved, as I said, you don't need melee combat stats overall. I would pick the normal Marauder Horseman if you need just a cheap harassment unit, and if you need a little bit AP damage or AP damage, take the Marauder Horseman with throwing axes. I don't see any case where the extra charge for the Marauder Horsemasters are worth the price. So in my I would leave them out, because with 750 credits they are nearly a mid-range, or they are mid-range missile cavalry unit, and for this case they have no AP damage, and I would leave them out. So let's begin with the monsters and beasts, and let's start with the Chaos Warhounds, a very important unit in my opinion, because these guys are have a very high speed, and they're very good for chasing skirmisher units, and also to kill missile infantry units, and for all these purposes the Chaos Warhounds are really designed for. And as I said, the speed is very high with 95, and the melee attack and melee defense is not the highest, and even the weapon strength is not really high, so they are not designed to fight against other infantry units, but against missile infantry, against low tier missile infantry, I have to say, because against Loth and Seagard they will also struggle, or will also get killed, you can say, but against low tier missile infantry and skirmisher units, these guys do a good job, and for 400 credits they are really cost efficient. So there's also the poison version available for 75 credits extra charge, and these guys are always preferable in my opinion, because these guys causing poison attacks, as the name already said, and this is really an advantage if you chase skirmisher units that will slow down their speed. But also there are other cases in which these guys can really do some good work with their poison. For example, if it is necessary, you can do some rear charges in the front line of your opponent in the infantry, pull them out very fast, and then their infantry units get slowed down, and this can be an advantage for your own infantry and all that stuff. So because the poison also reduces the weapon damage, for example. So there are a lot of cases in which these guys really pay off, and as I said, I would always pay the 75 credits extra charge for these poison warhounds. So let's talk about the Chaos Trolls, and Chaos Trolls have a significant advantage and also a significant disadvantage. The disadvantage is that I have very low leadership, and the normal troll version, the Chaos Troll version, has also a very low amount of armor. The good stuff is that they have regeneration. They're causing a very tremendous amount of AP damage with 70. They have 12 models in their group, so they are designed to fight with other infantry units, so in a combination with your infantry units, not separately on the battlefield. This is a frontline unit, or a unit that works perfectly directly behind the front line in combination with your own infantry, however, so they are not separated, and they are protected from your own troops, and then the damage output is gigantic and really high. Of course, the leadership is quite low, so they will rout off from time to time, maybe, or probably, and but they regenerate in this period, and when they come back they have more hit points than before in most cases, so it's not that problem. So against armored infantry, these guys perform really perfect. The melee attack is okay, the melee defense is okay, but the most significant point is the AP damage and the weapon strength. They're causing fear, also quite interesting. They have this regeneration ability, as I already said, and for 800 credits they're really cost efficient. Then we have also the Chaos Trolls, the armored version. These guys have a tremendous amount of armor, you can say. The armored version have a plus 70 armor regarding the normal version, so we have amount of 110 over here, and this is quite a lot of stuff. The other stats are the same, so you pay just for the higher amount of armor, but in my opinion it's always worth it, because plus 70 is a lot of stuff, so they are much steadier. It's not so easy to kill them. You need AP damage, and in my opinion these 200 credits extra charge, so the price is 1000, is always worth or always preferable to regarding the normal Chaos Trolls. So overall, Trolls are in many matchups quite decent, not in all, but as I said, if you use them in the correct way, they can really pay off. So let's talk about the Chaos Spawn and the Chaos Spawn. These guys are monstrous damage dealers. You can also say that Chaos Trolls are monstrous damage dealers. But the Chaos Spawn, these guys are pure monstrous damage dealers. You can say they are unbreakable, they're never out off, they're designed to fight infantry units. Their big strength is their weapon strength, because it's, for example, much more than the weapon strength of the Chaos Trolls. We have plus 60 regarding to the Chaos Trolls, and overall a weapon strength of 160, and the amount of AP damage is 42. It's not bad, but of course here the Trolls have the advantage because they have much higher weapon amount of AP damage. They have also 12 models in one group, like the Chaos Trolls. As I said, they are pure monster damage dealers, so they have nearly no armor. The amount is 10 and the melee defense is 28, typically for damage dealers, and that means they will nearly take all the complete damage. And they are designed, in my opinion, to fight mid-range or low-tier infantry units, and not so heavily armored infantry units. Even if they have a little bit AP damage, they shouldn't be that heavily armored. So the Chaos Spawn is not really in every matchup useful, because if you really face up against a lot of infantry units, they can really pay off. But in other matchups, I wouldn't say it's worth to bring them. The price is 1000. It's also not really cheap if you know that you can deploy a group of Chaos Trolls with armor also for the same price. So it's not really cheap and not so cost efficient, I would say. But in some matchups they pay off, in others not. So let's talk about the Weird Spawn. I hope I pronounced this correct. This is the Regiment of Renown version of the Chaos Spawn, and we have here improved Melee combat stats, melee defense plus 11, melee attack plus 7, and we have this ability called Armor Sundering that will reduce the amount of armor by minus 30. So it's quite interesting. Then we have a physical resistance by 15%. This is also exclusive on this weird spawn unit. But besides from that, we have nothing special. We have the same amount of AP damage with 42. And so I wouldn't really say it's worth to bring them. The extra charge is 250. This is okay, but we don't have anything special over here. The Armor Sundering is nice, but I wouldn't bring just these more expensive Chaos Spawn just for the Armor Sundering ability. So in the most case, if I would play with Chaos Spawn, I would bring the normal ones. So let's talk about the Dragon Ogres, and these guys are well designed to fight large entities. So we have several models over here, 12 units in one group. The weapon strength overall is quite good with 110, the AP damage with 77 is good, and then we have in addition to that a bonus versus large of 26. The melee defense is also quite good with 40, also the melee attack with 32 is okay. So they are not so heavily armored, there's just amount of 45, this is not really much, but even though they're causing fear and have a missile resistance of 25%, cause they have the scaly skin. But overall they are really well designed to fight large entities, especially you can also fight against cavalry with them, but I would really say that they are designed to fight large single entities. So if you want to drop a giant or stuff like that, these guys are really designed to do that, and for that purpose these guys are also really good. The price is not really cheap, so this is the only disadvantage in my opinion. We have 1700 credits, is a little bit much in my opinion, but I would really say in some matchups, if you have to face up against single large entities and if you have to drop them, these guys can really pay off. So there's also a Regiment of Renown version available, the Summoners of Rage. These guys have a much higher melee defense, plus 13, 53 overall. They're causing magical attacks, have a higher melee attack, and they have a ability, these Chain Lightning, but in my opinion nothing special. Meanwhile, Chain Lightning causing a tremendous amount of damage, but it's still a Vortex spell, so it will change the direction. And so it's a little bit random over here, but even though this is okay, this additional spell over here, the other stats are quite similar, or the other stats are similar. We have the same amount of AP damage and the same bonus versus large, so nothing special. The extra charge is 250 credits. I'm not sure. I wouldn't. In some cases, it's worth to bring them because the melee stats improved quite a lot, especially the melee defense. Also, magical attacks can pay off in some cases, so it depends. In some cases, it's worth to bring to pay the 250 extra charge. In others, you can take a normal group of Dragon Ogres. I wouldn't say that the normal Dragon Ogres are preferable or the Summoners of Rage. It depends on your gameplay and your matchup. Even though that I say it's a lot of stuff to pay nearly 2,000 credits for a group of Dragon Ogres. This is quite a lot. So let's talk for a second about the Feral Manticore. But there's not much to talk about because I already said a lot about the Manticore in my Dark Elf faction guide. I really like to play with Feral Manticore. I really like this unit. I used to play a lot with the Manticore on ladder games and used him as a harass unit or to kill enemy missile infantry units or to chase out routing units and for all that stuff, but also to fight against mid-range infantry units. He has really a good weapon strength with nearly 450 and good tools. He is not so heavily armored. The leadership is also not the highest, but even if he routes off, he will come back. He's causing fear and terror and has a natural missile resistance of 15%. The problem is, since I think Mortal Empires, that he's now on Rampage, and this is the huge disadvantage. Without Rampage ability, this would be a decent pick in many matchups because the price is 900 credits, and for that the stats are really good. As I said, you have the Rampage ability, he will get out of control, and this is a huge disadvantage, and I understand that some players don't like that. But I think still it is a good pick in some matchups, and you have some aerial threat at least, especially for Chaos, is quite good. And as I said, he has really good stats to fight in a lot of infantry units, and also if he has to fight other units in the air in some cases. He's not the best fighter in the air, but in some cases it can make a difference and can pay off. As I already said, it's also possible to sit a sorcerer on a manticore, and then the manticore is really cheap with 450 credits. So let's talk about the giant, and I already made a giant unit guide about giants in general. You can find it in my playlist about guides. There is a 4 or 5 minute guide about giants. And a giant is a unit I really like giants. Of course, they are really a big target and the first target for missile infantry, for artillery and all that stuff. But if you face up against factions that don't have any missile infantry, for example the vampire counts, the giant is the best tool to compete against them, and he causing fear and terror, causing a tremendous amount of damage, also AP damage. The armor is quite low with 30, and also the speed, of course, he's very slow, but he's the last unit that routes off from the battlefield, because he's not unbreakable, but he is close to that, so he has a leadership of 100. The best use is to bring him in your front line, however, so not separately. Never bring a giant separately. It's very easy to drop a giant with cav or anti-ledge units then, so always bring in your front line. It's a frontline unit, not directly in the front line, but in combination with your infantry units. Then you will get the best performance output when he is surrounded by your own infantry troops. The price is 1,600 credits, and as I said, if you use him in a correct way and in the right matchup, he really pays off, and then he's really cost efficient. So last but not least, the Dragon Ogre Shagget, and for a long time he was one of the strongest units in the game, I would say. Of course, we have now the Necrosphinx and all that stuff, but still the Dragon Ogre Shagget is really important, especially to compete with a Colic inner couple against, for example, Necrosphinx and all that stuff, or a lot of large entities. The weapon strength is 460, we have a huge amount of AP damage with 320, and we have a bonus versus large of 30, very good. He's causing fear and terror and has a natural missile resistance of 25%, because he has also a scaly skin. The amount of armor is okay with 70, it's not the highest, but it's okay. Melee attack and melee defense is really good with 50, nearly 50 or about 50. We have 52 melee attack and 50 melee defense. But so nothing more to say. A war machine, you can say, in combination with a Colic, this couple is really strong, especially because the Dragon Ogre Shagget is really, really fast. We have the same amount of speed. Actually, Colic is a little bit faster with an amount of 78, but the Dragon Ogre Shagget has 76, not really a big difference. So they are really, really fast, and this is also a big advantage because you have a good mobility on the battlefield. A Dragon Ogre Shagget performing also well against infantry groups because of his massive splash damage, like on Colic. With 2000 credits, the Dragon Ogre Shagget is not really cheap, but if you bring him in combination with a Colic, in most cases he really pay off, and even if he's very expensive, he pays off, and I would say it's cost efficient because you have a huge performance and massive damage output. So let's talk about the Hell Cannon, and the Hell Cannon is a really good artillery unit. The amount of damage is tremendous. We have overall amount of 421. The armor piercing missile damage is 262. A lot of stuff over here. The explosive damage is 30, and the explosive armor piercing damage is 90. So a lot of splash damage over here, a lot of AP damage. The missile range is also really good. We have 420, so this is also really good. The Hell Cannon causing magical attacks. And yeah, we have some abilities. We have Boom, that will increase the explosion damage by 25%, and the armor piercing explosion damage by 20%. Also we have Blood, that increases the speed of the missiles by 25%, the acceleration by 18%, and the vigor by 18%. And we have this Hell Cannon is unbreakable, so they will never run off. And we have a high accuracy. This is also a very unique characteristic of the Hell Cannon, that we have really a high accuracy. Of course, the Hell Cannon has this Doomfire ability that will allow some minor corrections while firing or while flying. So if you fire with the Hell Cannon, you will get some minor corrections to if your target is moving, and this is also quite good and increases the accuracy, of course. So the price is 1,200 credits, so you pay for the performance, but it's really, in some cases, if you decide to bring artillery to the battlefield, the Hell Cannon in many cases will pay off. So it depends on the matchup, but it's quite cost efficient. So there's also Regiment of Renown available, the Soul of Damnation, and here the most important point over here is that we have a massive improvement on the missile damage. So we have a plus 120 regarding the missile damage of the normal Hell Cannon. The AP damage and splash damage and all that stuff is the same, but as I said, the missile damage overall is tremendous with 541. And yeah, we have an additional ability called Soul Devourer that will increase the reload skills by plus 40. And yeah, so overall the extra charge is tremendous high. You can say we have plus 35, 350, 35, that would be good. No, 350, and for that I wouldn't say it's worth to bring them. Of course the damage output is much more massive, but it's simply too expensive and the extra charge is too much, so I wouldn't bring that. So that's everything from the army roster, and yeah, let's continue with the competitive build section. Yo, welcome guys to the competitive build section, and let's start with a anti-large build, and yeah, let's take a closer look on it. You can see I brought Chaos Marauders in the front line, 3 groups, and of course these guys are not well designed to fight against large entities, but you can say I use them as a meat shield. So you have to increase your amount of units in your army if you have to bring a lot of anti-large stuff. Of course, in most cases anti-large units, no matter if they are monsters or units, have a high price. So you have a very low amount of units then, and for this purpose I think the Chaos Marauders are quite good, because you also don't have to forget, if you are going to face up against a lot of monsters, you are probably not going to face up against a lot of high tier infantry units, because your opponent has simply not the money to buy expensive monsters and expensive infantry units. So in most cases these guys will perform quite decent against low tier infantry, and as I said, they are shielded, they are meat shield, and even if they rout off, get terrified from enemy monsters, it's okay. The more important stuff is in the background. Then I brought these Dragon Ogres over here, and these guys are really good to fight single large entities. For example, Necrosphinx or monsters like this, a giant or stuff like that. These guys are really well for that purpose. But of course you can also replace this spot over here for the Swords of Chaos. That depends on your gameplay and your own decision. But these both are in the same price range, and of course, as you can bring Dragon Ogres or Swords of Chaos, that I think this is both solutions are quite good. Then I have on each side a group of Forsaken. On the left flank a normal group of Forsaken, and here on the right flank I brought these Demon Spew. These guys are of course for flanking my enemy very hard, or to fight against infantry units. Depends on the match. Also you can support your front line, or you flank your enemy and attack some also missile infantry, whatever. And very important over here is that I brought on the spot over here Chaos Warriors with halberds. This is a mid-range anti-large infantry units, and on this spot over here you can decide if you would like to protect your front line, if some large entities charge in, or if you would like to protect your flanks or your Forsaken. This is also possible. So this spot over here is very important with these Chaos Warriors with halberds, and the performance is quite decent against large entities. Directly behind my front line I brought these Mirror Guard, because these guys are immune to psychology. They will not rout off if a large target comes nearby, and also they perform quite decent against not so heavily armored infantry units. And as I said, if you're going to face up against a lot of large units, you're probably not going to face up against a lot of high tier or very heavily armored infantry units. So in most cases the performance in this anti-large build is good. Then I brought a Dragon Ogre couple, a Dragon Ogre Shaggot, and a Dragon Kolek Sun Eater. And nothing more to say about these two guys. You know how is the performance against large entities. Very good, of course, so nothing more to say about them. And last but not least, I Exalted Hero, because I think Exalted Hero is also in this matchup quite decent against large targets. He has no anti-large bonus, and he has also not really a good amount of AP damage, but even though the most cases your opponent will probably going to ignore him for the most parts of the game, because he is of course a big target, but he is quite small in a monster fight, so he will ignore him the most time, and then he will get a lot of damage from his performance against large targets, against monsters, is really good with the Exalted Hero, and he's also very heavily armored. So nothing more to say about that. I think I said everything, and I'm pretty sure this build works quite well against large and a lot of large entities from Tomb Kings or Lizardmen, for example. So I forgot to say that Forsaken are also immune to psychology. That means this is also a good, quite a good advantage in, especially against anti-large builds. So they will not rout off or get terrified from large entities. But yeah, let's come to the next build, and this is the more heavy stuff with a lot of AP damage in there. And yeah, and overall I found it really difficult to create general builds with the Warriors of Chaos, but I think this build over here is overall really, or can perform really good in many matchups, or in some matchups, because we have a lot of Chaos Warriors with great weapons in here, and these guys are, as I said in my faction guide, in my opinion, one of the most cost efficient units in a complete game. And for example, against the Empire struggle a lot against these guys. In a 1-on-1 they will lose against a group of Great Spurts, but even though it's not that clear, so they will also damage the Great Spurts a lot, and you can bring a lot of them. So these guys are a mid-range infantry unit, and they really perform superior against the high tier infantry unit like the Great Swords. And as I said, you outnumber him because you can bring a lot of them to the battlefield. In this case we have 5 groups, and also a front line of Chaos Marauders with great weapons, and also here we have a huge front line, you can see that, and a massive front line, very long front line, and this is very good. Directly behind my front line I have Chaos Trolls, 2 groups armored Chaos Trolls, and this is the best purpose to use them in combination, for example with your own infantry, or for example in this case with low tier infantry in the front line. Both units will perform better if the other unit will support them, so that Chaos Trolls will perform better in addition with the Chaos Marauders, and also the Chaos Marauders will perform better with the support of the Chaos Trolls over here. Here's an additional group of Chaos Warriors, and then I brought Saratrell to the battlefield. So if you expect a lot of missile infantry or artillery, Saratrell is really good for that, because he has this missile resistance of 60%. He's also really good against a lot of factions that don't have so much mobility, because he has a high amount of speed, so it can cause so much trouble in the enemy ranks. He's not so easy to catch. For example, against a lot of factions, against Dawi or something like that, it's very difficult for them to catch him, because he can cause a lot of trouble if you have at least some macro management. the AP damage is not the highest, but he's also, of course, he's a spellcaster. I brought him with Searing Doom, causing a good amount of damage. Plague of Frost will reduce the armor in this AP heavy build, and we have Final Transmutation over here, so I think this can work out quite well. Then I brought a Manticore also here. That depends on the matchup, but in some cases it's really worth to bring a Manticore to chase or to kill harass units, or to fly in enemy infantry ranks or missile infantry ranks. And then last but not least, I brought some harass units, these Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, and this is the AP version, so these guys causing a very good amount of AP damage. And yeah, this, as I said, AP heavy build, I think this is quite good, or these guys can perform quite well, and you have at least some mobility or some units with that are able to cause some harass damage in the pre-combat, for example. So I think this build can perform in some matchups quite well, and yeah, as I said, it depends with Sarah Torell and the Manticore. There are things that I can't decide. It's just a general build over here. To the next build, and this is a heavy based infantry build, or to compete against a lot of infantry units. And let's start over here. I brought Chaos Marauders again in the front line. I think this is a quite decent frontline unit, just to increase the amount of units in your army. As I said, they are shielded, and at least for that price I think this is quite okay. Directly behind that I brought Aspiring Champions with their Encourage ability. They will support the front line over here on nearby infantry groups or nearby units, and Miro Guard also over here, also immune to psychology. Then I brought on each rank these, in this case the Word Spawn, and on the other side I brought the Chaos Spawn. So also this will support the front line for fighting or slice and dice enemy infantry ranks. On each side, on the left, on the right flank, I brought Forsaken for flankings, of course. And here in the back line, on this spots over here, you can see I brought more heavy stuff. I brought Chosen with great weapons, and not because if you expect a lot of heavy armored targets, you have to create another build. But even though if you're going to face up against a lot of infantry units, low tier infantry units, they really struggle to kill these Chosen, and for that purpose the Chosen are very, very steady. And in most cases it's not necessary to bring Chosen with halberds at all, because also these guys will perform superior against large targets no matter what. And these guys slice and dice everything, and in this spot you can really decide what you would like to support. If you would like to support your front line, put them in there, or your flanks can also support your flanks over here. But they are very steady, and they are really the stone in this build over here. If everything routes off, these guys are more steady, and they will, of course, then they will support a lot the other infantry groups. Then I brought Siegwald on foot, because Siegwald is a very heavy target, or very difficult to kill. So it's very, very difficult to kill Siegwald and on foot, and for this purpose not so much large targets in the build over here. And I think this is quite good. He has a huge weapon strength and will perform really superior against other lords or also large entities, no matter what. Then I brought a Chaos Sorcerer with Law of Shadows and Pendulum and Pit of Shades over here. Always good against infantry groups that are engaged in a frontline fight, for example. You can cast a Pendulum then, or a Pit of Shades on them, and they will get a lot of damage from that. But overall that's it. As I said, the only disadvantage over here is a lack in mobility. So we have no mobility over here, just ground units or just infantry units, and a little these Chaos Spawn. This is the only disadvantage, but against a lot of units, in order not to get outnumbered, this build can work quite well. So let's come to the last build, and this is quite a all-round build, you can say. But you can see in the most cases I bring a lot of Chaos Warriors with great weapons. They are really good, and you can bring so much of them for a very low amount of credits. And in this case I brought 6 groups, and this is quite a lot of AP damage output over here. And in the front line I have a very cheap front line again with Chaos Marauders and Aspiring Champion, and in the back line I spreaded them very good over here. 2 groups on the left, 2 groups on the right flank, and 2 groups to support directly the front line. Then I brought a Chaos Sorcerer with Law of Death on a Chaos Dragon, and here we have of course Fate of Buna, Spirit Leech, and nothing more, just these 2. And to support your Flying Lord a Manticore, and with the Law of Death and Spirit Leech I'm pretty sure that you have the aerial threat with the additional Manticore, because you can cast Spirit Leech on your opponent. So if your opponent has a lot of dragons or also flying units, Royal Pegasus Knights, as I said, you have Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech in addition to your combat damage, and you have a Manticore, so I'm pretty sure that you have the aerial threat over here. And last but not least, a Hell Cannon. A Hell Cannon is very good, but of course in many matchups not the best pick or a bad pick, because against Empire or against Dawi it's very risky to bring a Hell Cannon, because with their cannons they can snipe out the Hell Cannon very fast. So it's just in some matchups worth to bring, because it's simply too he get outranged very fast from other cannons, and this is the problem. But in other matchups the Hell Cannon really perform good. The damage output is tremendous, and also the accuracy is really good, and for that purpose if you are able to bring a Hell Cannon, I would do it. For example against the Wood Elves or stuff like that, the Hell Cannon can perform really good. But yeah, that's everything. Nothing more to say about my build over here. As I said, it's quite difficult in this faction guide to create around builds with Chaos. But you can see I'm a big fan of Chaos Warriors with great weapons, or also in some cases 2 or 3 groups of Chosen can really make the difference, of course. And the main army core in most cases Chaos Warriors with great weapons. But that was everything from the competitive build section. Let's do a summary. So let's do a summary. The Warriors of Chaos are a very elite faction. They have such a good amount of leadership, armor piercing and armor in average, and that makes them so steady. But they are still able to bring a good amount of units to the battlefield, because they have also cheap options available on the army roster, and in average are the units very cost efficient. So they are really good for beginners, as mentioned in the beginning, because the Warriors of Chaos are really good to control. The front line is not breaking up very easy, very fast, so the beginners don't have to constantly return routing units to the battlefield or to the front line. And this is a very good point over here, because you have a good control over the whole army. But there are also weaknesses, as mentioned, for example the lack in flying units, so in most cases they will not compete very well in the air. So the biggest strength is by far the heavy infantry base, and the lords. We have very competitive lords, and we have a very strong infantry base with a lot of variation in there. In the first game most players would say that the Warriors of Chaos were a mid-range faction, but for me the Warriors of Chaos were always a high tier faction, because they're performing really superior. But anyway, guys, thank you for tuning into this faction guide over here. If you liked what you see, please give me a thumb up or subscribe to this channel. And thank you for tuning in as always. Thank you for all your kind words. It means a lot to me. And yeah, see you next time on my next faction guide, and have a nice evening.